So, and when, you know, opponents trying to do stuff like that, that's just to get us out of the game. Feels good to be up 3-1, so we definitely don't want to be in a situation like the Warriors 2 years ago.
Joe.
I was kidding, man. I tried to say
The post-game press conferences have become as entertaining, at least when Joel Embiid is involved.
Embiid is funny, man.
That was your line. What was
Embiid's just a funny cat. I didn't think he could top the Jared Dudley. He's a nobody, by the way. Got that in. And then he makes a 3-1 Warriors joke.
How impressive was Joel Embiid in this game?
Man, in a game we didn't think he was going to play in.
No one did.
In a game that he was a true game-time decision to come out and put up a playoff line 31-16-7 with 6 blocks that no one's put up since Kareem. I mean, he was great. And it wasn't a must-win game for Philly. They'd be okay going back home 2-2, but it's a win that essentially ends the series. He was the best player on both ends of the court, and he was doing it not at full strength. We know his wind is not totally beneath him. We know, as you pointed out, he's a little heavier than he would like to be, but he was unstoppable. Every time they dumped it down to him, he was getting the shot he wanted. Now, he wasn't finishing it every time, but he was unstoppable on both ends. The story of this game, after Ben Simmons was the story without Joel Embiid in Game 3, Joel comes back, and he shows how good this team can be because the Nets played well. It's not like the Nets rolled over in this. The Nets really controlled this game. The Nets were the team that it felt throughout the game was in position to win. And then late in the game, you had that broken play where Embiid has the touch pass out to the corner for the biggest shot of the game. Embiid was spectacular at less than 100% in a game that sets them up perfectly to end this thing in 5.
Yeah, and they needed everything. They needed every block. They needed every assist, every rebound that he had. He makes the critical pass at the end of the game where a bad pass gets him up under the bucket and where he could have shot a bad shot.
Yep.
He could have gathered himself and tried to go over 2 people, but he finds Scott in the corner. And to me, Joel Embiid, it's so refreshing to see him. And not just in the game, because a lot of the experts before the game was like, oh, Philly's up 2-1, they shouldn't play him. Then he comes out. Well, Hooper's who? Like, so I understand him wanting to play because if they're able to win this game, because you said it wasn't a must-win situation, but you don't want to go back to Philadelphia tied 2-2.
Sure.
Because Brooklyn would have all the momentum, all the confidence, and with them being so undersized at the 5 position, at the center position, Joel Embiid should have these types of numbers. Now, with him being injured, with him being questionable before the games, that's what made this performance so spectacular. But there is no bigger mismatch in all the playoff matchups than the Brooklyn and who they're going to put at center going against Joel Embiid, and he showed us everything. Finesse game, power game, shooting with either hand, finishing at the rim. Wasn't behind the three-point line as much as he had been earlier in the season, but the ability to be able to push through that nagging injury, very impressive.
But the reason, Nick, that we all thought that he could take a breather, maybe, and then come back, or even if they win that game, not play the next game, was because of the way Ben Simmons had been playing the last couple of games. Because Ben Simmons came out and was able to carry them, we said, all right, this is the Ben Simmons we thought we could get. Why do you think it is they did play Joel Embiid in the end?
Well, I think he wanted to play, and he was healthy enough to play. I thought they would be extra cautious with him, and that if it was any questionable at all, they would say, get back to full strength. See if we can win a game without you. Now, but we also didn't know Jimmy Butler was going to get kicked out. That was the other part of this where Embiid's second half was incredibly critical is Butler gets kicked out midway through the third quarter, and now all of a sudden, what do you have offensively? A team that we've talked about is incredibly thin on their bench. Now Mike Scott is essentially a starter. Now you have nobody you trust on your bench to go to. You've got to play your 4 starters plus Mike Scott with Butler kicked out for most of the second half. So it was, the Nets were very happy. The Nets would trade Jared Dudley for Jimmy Butler out of the game at any time, which is why it was so smart of Embiid, and he said it also to stay out of it. He said, I'm too important to my team to have any chance of getting kicked out of a game.
It should be noted Philadelphia up 3-1. Tobias Harris has been the second best player for the Sixers. He's been better than Jimmy Butler. He's been better than Ben Simmons. And with Joel Embiid coming back into the lineup, we don't talk about him, but, man, his outside shooting and him at 6'8", 6'9", man, he's a problem for other teams to be able to guard. So Philadelphia looked good this weekend.
Big win, big night for Joel Embiid. All right, let's move on to the Celtics now. Clean sweep over the Pacers as they won Game 4 on Sunday. 7 Celtics were in double figures, including Gordon Hayward, who led the way with 20 points. Celtics can now take a little breather as they'll likely face Milwaukee in the next round. Here is Gordon Hayward after finishing up round 1.
There's nothing worse than sitting there and not being able to play in the playoffs especially. And so to be able to be with my teammates, be a part of something like this where we got a chance to sweep the Pacers, and after everything that happened last year, and, you know, it makes it all worth it, no doubt, and it's just the beginning for us. So we still got a lot of work to do.
But it's exciting to know that when the pressure, quote unquote, gets high, or you know, you're asked to be challenged in a certain situation, that, you know, you have guys that can respond to that and respond pretty well. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be the way that you expect it to be individually, but as long as we stay together as a team, I think that whatever result it is, it's just more manageable when everyone's together than just apart. So I'm happy about that we're all just diving into it, you know, kind of having a blind faith in each other and just go out there and just be great.
All right, CC, yes, the Celtics swept the Pacers, but none of these games were dominating wins for the Celtics. From what you saw over the last 4, do you think they could challenge the Bucks and go on a run?
Well, I think that they're playing some of their best basketball, and good matchup for them in the first round, giving them the Pacers without their star player in Victor Oladipo. But it gave them a chance to play as a team. And I do think that, and not because of Marcus Smart, I think that they had one player too many. And I think that this helped out their rotation, that all of their 7, 8 players can get consistent minutes. And as you can see, they responded with 7 guys scoring in double figures. And when you have that type of concentration as far as minutes, as far as the ball being distributed, and you know that Kyrie Irving, he's playing some of the best basketball that we've seen him play. He looks healthier. His legs look fresher. Kyrie Irving is trying to play some defense in the playoffs. So those are all signs. And if Marcus Smart was able to come back, I don't want to get it too polluted, but they're better with a tighter rotation. It just becomes hard to manage 10 guys to get enough shots, get enough minutes, and make everyone feel good. That was one of the problems of Celtics that they don't have now. Now with Marcus Smart, will he be back for this next series? Don't think so. So now the overall roster, man, they got a strong roster. But this is the first time, or one of the few times, we've seen them play well with Kyrie being in the lineup.
Listen, a sweep is impressive no matter who you do it against. It obviously gives you more time to rest. It removes some injury concern. It gives you extra time to drill down on your upcoming opponent. And there were parts of this sweep that have to be incredibly encouraging for Boston. Jason Tatum was really good, their most consistent player in this series. Gordon Hayward, the way the sweep ended with his excellent fourth quarter where he hit 3 after 3 after 3, all seemingly in critical spots, because as you mentioned, especially after game 1, Indiana was in position in any of these series. But that is a theme for Boston over the last couple years, over the last few years in the playoffs, seemingly against any series other than Cleveland, which is, if it's close late, trust us. Trust our coach, trust our infrastructure, trust our team to make the right play. But to answer your question, do I think that they can challenge Milwaukee? I do not. I think they should be incredibly proud of what they accomplished, beating the Pacers. It would have been a disaster if they had lost to the Pacers without Victor Oladipo, a team that's 16-23 since Oladipo went down. But Milwaukee is a great team that has been great all year long. Milwaukee will not miss the wide open threes the Pacers were missing throughout the series. Milwaukee will not have multiple quarters in the series where they make 2, 3, or 4 field goals as the Pacers did. So listen, if they challenge and even beat Milwaukee, then what everyone said about Boston before the year was correct, and I was wrong. Like, this is a team that is as well positioned as anybody to come out of the East. I think we're going to see who Milwaukee is and who Boston is in the next round. But they gave themselves the best chance to challenge Milwaukee by getting done with this series as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think I have to dispute you a little bit on that, because let's just say Boston. Can they win one game in Milwaukee of the first 2 games?
I don't think so.
You don't think they can win? There's no way they can win?
Well, of course there's a way. I mean,
oh, okay. Well, then it's the
sure.
playoffs.
Okay,
like, there is no one-sided matchup in the second round of the playoffs, and we don't have all those yet. The Celtics, the first team to clinch. But as we have seen, where the road team has won 8 straight games in the playoffs, like, man, this is one of the most competitive playoffs that we've ever seen. Especially, we ain't even through the first round yet. So to eliminate a team from the second round, well, man, we don't know what's going to happen with injuries and everything. And I think that Boston has the type of depth that they can challenge Milwaukee. And it really comes to, do you believe they can win one of those games in Milwaukee? And I really do believe that they can. Boston, this team, as we know it, has struggled in the playoffs on the road. We know in back home in Boston, they got tremendous home court advantage, and typically they play well there. So for me, can they win one on the road to Milwaukee? Yes. Is Milwaukee a better team? Yes, but there is no team out there. I just saw Golden State lose at home to the Clippers. So to think that Milwaukee has been that much of a class act over the rest of the NBA, I don't think so.
Do you think, though, that they're playing, after what you saw the last 4 games in this first round, a little bit closer to the preseason expectations?
Yes, defensively.
Changed.
Defensively, yes.
Together.
They were outstanding defensively. I think Kyrie would tell you he needs to play better in the next round. He had one good game in the series, and it was a great game. He was tremendous in that 37-point performance, but that was the only game where he was over 50% from the field. It's the only game where he was, I think, over 20 points per game. I think they know that they need more. Al Horford had one of the worst offensive playoff games of his career last night or yesterday afternoon. Defensively, yes. I think Milwaukee's a totally different animal they're about to face.
When you judge Kyrie, you can't judge it just on the stat sheet. You got to judge it based on how he looks on the court. Look at his overall bounce in his game. Look at his distribution as far as assists, the turnover ratio. Look at his attentiveness to defense on the defensive end. And also, look at the press conference. The kid looks happy. He looks like a real leader, and he's saying the right things. So for me, as I'm evaluating everyone in the playoffs, especially the superstars, there's other things that I like to look at. And Kyrie, no, not on the stat sheet. After his best season in his NBA career. In the playoffs, though, he's got that little glimmer in his eye. He's got that smile. He's on the defensive end. You could see that he's putting the effort in. So I think this was a great series for him, coming off a lot of turmoil during the regular season as a leader, getting the Celtics to the second round.
All right, we got a break there. Coming up, does OKC